It was the last snowfall of March when Daniel and Rebecca moved into the quiet cul-de-sac on Hemlock Street. They had just downsized from the city, both in their early 50s, ready for slower mornings and evenings spent by the fireplace. The house was old but charming, a 1940s colonial with creaky floors and thick, comforting walls. The neighborhood seemed peaceful, almost too still, but they welcomed the change. On their fourth night, a knock echoed through the hallway just past 11 p.m. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp. Daniel, halfway through a documentary and a glass of whiskey, exchanged a puzzled glance with Rebecca. "Expecting anyone?" he asked. She shook her head slowly, her face creasing. It was too late for neighbors and too early for trouble. He opened the front door, and there stood a man, mid-50s, soaked from the snow, eyes glassy but oddly focused. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, breathless and pale, as if he'd been running. The man's lips finally parted. "Please, I just need to come in, just for a moment. I'm sorry, I think someone's after me." Daniel didn't know what to say. Something in the man's face was unsettling. Not fear, something else. As if he knew exactly what he was doing. But it was cold, and Daniel's instincts kicked in. "All right, just a minute. You can warm up inside." Rebecca's voice cut through the tension as the man stepped inside. "Daniel, are you sure?" But he'd already shut the door. The stranger didn't take off his coat. He stood near the fireplace, hands outstretched, not saying much else. His eyes scanned the room like he was counting exits. When he finally spoke again, it came out in fragments. "I used to live on this street. Years ago, before they built the cul-de-sac. There was a house where this one is now. It burned down, took my sister with it." Daniel's heart thudded. Rebecca had gone completely still. They hadn't heard anything about a fire from the realtor. "I'm not here to cause trouble," the man whispered. "But she came back last winter. I saw her, right here, in this very room." Rebecca finally found her voice. "Your sister? You mean her ghost?" The man slowly turned to her. "No," he said, "not a ghost. She's still here, hungry, lonely. She just needs someone to talk to, someone to stay." The lights flickered. It wasn't dramatic, just enough to make them all look up. A sound followed, a soft creaking, like a child stepping across a wooden floor upstairs. Daniel's skin prickled. They had no kids, no pets, and the upstairs had been locked since they moved in. They hadn't even unpacked the boxes up there yet. The man didn't seem surprised. In fact, his shoulders relaxed. "She knows I'm here," he whispered, almost fondly. "She always knows." Rebecca backed away, clutching her cardigan. "You need to leave, now." "It's not me you should be afraid of," the man said, his voice deepening. "I've kept her at bay for years. I was the only one who knew how. But I'm tired. I can't keep doing it. It's your house now. She'll want you." Something scraped along the upstairs floor, like dragging fingernails or furniture being slowly pushed. Daniel turned pale. "What the hell is that?" "She's waking up," the man said. "You invited me in. That's all she needed." Daniel lunged for the door. Get out now!" But the man didn't move. He looked up at the ceiling with a soft, eerie smile. "She's already coming. It's too late." A loud slam upstairs made Rebecca scream. The house groaned, the walls seeming to pulse with pressure. The air turned thick, heavy, like breathing underwater. Rebecca tried to dial her phone, but the screen flickered dead. Daniel grabbed the fireplace poker. "This is insane," he muttered, eyes wide. "We don't even know who you are." The man turned to him. "My name is Joseph. I was 10 when she died. I wasn't supposed to survive the fire, but I did. And so did she. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, as something else." His eyes were wet now, desperate. "She's not evil, not at first, but the longer she's alone, the worse it gets. I visit her to keep her calm, talk to her, but now that you've let me in, I think she thinks you're the new family." The room dimmed again, every light snuffed out except the fire, which burned low and blue. A breath, audible, came from the staircase, then another. Rebecca clutched Daniel's arm. "I swear something just breathed on my neck." A child's giggle echoed from above. Joseph stepped forward, calm, resigned. "You can give her what she wants. Just talk to her. Let her stay. She doesn't like when people leave. That's when she changes." Daniel snapped. "We're not part of this. Get out." Joseph turned. "She won't hurt you, not if you accept her. But if you reject her, if you try to leave, she'll know, and she'll follow." That night they didn't sleep. They sat in the living room, candles lit, jumpy at every sound. The house was no longer theirs. It didn't feel like theirs. The shadows moved differently. Time passed slower. In the morning, Joseph was gone. No sign of him. The door was locked. No footprints outside. Just the faint scent of smoke upstairs. They didn't move out. They didn't talk to anyone. But neighbors say they changed. Rebecca doesn't smile anymore. Daniel avoids eye contact. And sometimes, late at night, if you walk past their house, you'll hear someone humming upstairs. A little girl's voice, sweet and soft, like she's trying to lull someone to sleep. No one ever knocks on their door. Daniel and Claire were finally getting away from everything. After 20 years of city noise, stressful jobs, and distant family, they had bought a house nestled deep in a quiet, wooded neighborhood. An old colonial-style home with ivy crawling up the stone walls, the kind of place that begged for peace and solitude. The first few days were serene. They repainted walls, unpacked old memories, and had wine on the porch as the cicadas hummed. But something felt off. There was no doorbell, just a small brass button next to the doorframe that didn't seem to work. On their third night, just past midnight, they heard 3 sharp knocks. When Daniel opened the door, no one was there. But lying on the welcome mat was a photograph. A faded Polaroid of their house, taken from the woods. Claire stared at it. "Where did this come from?" she whispered. Daniel, unsettled but trying to be rational, said, "Probably some neighborhood prank." He threw the photo away. By morning, it was back on the doormat. And this time, beneath it, a handwritten note. "Thank you for inviting me." They tried to shake it off, but the house wasn't done with them. Claire started noticing strange things. Lights left on that neither of them remembered switching. Soft thuds from upstairs when no one was there. Reflections in mirrors that didn't match reality. One morning, brushing her teeth, she saw something behind her in the mirror. A figure standing in the hallway. When she turned, nothing. Daniel installed a motion-activated security camera facing the front porch. The next night, the alarm woke them. They rushed to the monitor. The footage showed a person, a woman with long black hair, barefoot, staring straight into the lens. Her face was expressionless. No one had knocked, no sound. And yet there she was. Claire insisted on calling the police. They searched the area but found no one. They hadn't opened this upstairs guest room since moving in. The door had been stuck, warped from years of moisture. Daniel finally forced it open. Inside was a perfectly preserved bedroom, dust-covered but untouched. A child's bed, an old rocking horse, and a cracked porcelain doll sitting on the windowsill. Claire frowned. "We didn't buy the house furnished, did we?" On the wall was a name written in crayon, Lucy. Neither of them had any idea who Lucy was. That night, the doll was found in their bedroom. Daniel tried to convince Claire she had moved it by mistake. Claire, pale and shaken, swore she hadn't even touched it. They decided to lock the room again, but the next morning the door was wide open. While cleaning the attic, Daniel found a box labelled Property of Lucy. Inside were several dusty VHS tapes. One had a handwritten label, "Do not watch." Naturally, they did. The footage showed an old home video, shaky camcorder clips of a birthday party. The house was unmistakably the same one they were in. But what chilled them was the timestamp. 1993. The guests in the video never smiled. And in the background of every scene, that same barefoot woman appeared, sometimes by a tree, sometimes in a doorway, never acknowledged. Then the tape glitched, skipped, and froze on a frame. Claire, standing in the upstairs window, though she hadn't been there that day. The screen went black. Daniel ejected the tape, hands trembling. "We need to leave." But the front door wouldn't open. The locks had jammed. And from upstairs they heard the rocking horse begin to move. Claire's behaviour changed. She became distant, often staring out the window for hours. One night, Daniel found her whispering to the doll in the guest room. "She says you need to go," Claire said, her voice hollow. "She doesn't like strangers." Daniel begged her to snap out of it, but when he turned to leave, she hissed, "You're not him, not the real Daniel." He left the room, heart pounding. Later that night, he woke up alone. Claire was gone. Again, he searched the house and found her standing outside in the rain, barefoot, staring into the woods. When he called her name, she turned slowly, smiling in a way that wasn't hers. Daniel left the house the next day, alone. He checked into a motel, telling himself it was all psychological, that the stress of moving had finally gotten to them. But that night, his phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number, no message, just a video. It was footage from his own house, shot from inside the guest room. The camera was shaky, as if held by a child. It panned across the floor up to the bed, where Claire sat, cradling the doll, whispering something unintelligible. Then the camera turned to the mirror, and Daniel saw his own reflection. Except he wasn't there. Unable to resist, Daniel returned to the house, hoping to find answers. It was empty. Claire was nowhere to be found. But in the guest room, under the floorboards, he found a small leather-bound journal. Inside were childish entries, some innocent, others dark. "Mummy says I can't talk about the lady in the mirror. She lives behind the walls." And finally, "Claire is my new doll now. She'll stay forever. I always come when they leave the door open. I'm always the guest first." Daniel dropped the journal. His hands trembled. As he backed away, he saw the doll on the bed slowly turn its head toward him. He ran from the room, but the hallway was longer than before, stretching unnaturally. The doors on either side began creaking open, each revealing faceless figures unmoving, watching. Weeks later, the house was sold again. A new couple moved in, unaware of what had happened. They received no warnings. On their second night, they heard 3 knocks at midnight. They opened the door to find a Polaroid photo of the house. Upstairs, the guest room door was ajar. Inside, the porcelain doll sat on the windowsill. Next to it, another figurine had been added, one with features eerily resembling Daniel, eyes hollow, mouth open in silent terror. And this time, beneath the figurine, a small note: "Welcome, guest." It was a rainy November evening, the kind that made the windows weep and the roads hiss. Martin and Eliza Hadley had recently opened their countryside inn, the Willows, a quiet retreat nestled near the moors of Devon. Their dream of running a peaceful guest house for weary travellers had begun just a month ago. Business was slow but steady, and they enjoyed the quiet. That night, as the rain drummed the roof and Eliza checked the reservation log, a sudden knock echoed through the narrow hallway. Not the front door, but the side entrance, one that hadn't been used in years. Martin hesitated before opening it. A man stood there soaked, clutching an old leather suitcase. He looked pale, confused. I think I have a reservation," he muttered, voice distant. There was no name in the book, but something in his expression, lost, weary, pushed Eliza to nod. "Of course. Come in." Eliza handed him the key to room 7, a small room at the far end of the second floor that was rarely used. It had always felt colder than the others, even in summer. The man thanked them, gave no name, and went straight upstairs without asking for food or drink. Later that night, as Martin locked up, he noticed footprints in the hallway, wet and muddy, but not from the front door, from inside. They led to room 7. Curious, he checked outside. No car, no taxi tracks in the mud, just the howling wind. Over the next few days, the guest remained in his room. Eliza left food outside his door, which always vanished, though the plates returned untouched. No sounds came from inside, no light under the door, just silence. Occasionally, Martin thought he heard soft humming on the staircase, a tune that felt older than the house. Eliza grew uneasy. She tried knocking on room 7, but got no answer. Yet the guest appeared downstairs now and then, always at dusk. He never spoke, just stared out the window toward the moors, as if waiting for someone. His presence changed the atmosphere. The air grew thick, the inn darker even at noon. Eliza began hearing things, faint whispers as she passed empty rooms, a child laughing in the attic. One night, as she swept the front hallway, she heard the guest whisper, "They're still out there, waiting for me." She turned. He was gone. Martin tried to convince her it was the stress, long hours, the isolation, but he too started sleeping less. Their clocks began stopping at 3:17 a.m. every night, and the rain never seemed to stop, even when the weather report promised sunshine. On the 4th night, Eliza decided to deep clean room 7 while the guest wandered outside. She found an old photograph in the drawer. A family. Father, mother, young boy. The same guest stood beside them, looking unchanged. The photo was dated 1947. Her heart pounded. She ran to Martin, who stared at the image in disbelief. "It can't be. He looks exactly the same. They searched public records and found a chilling detail. The Willows was once a home for the mentally ill. A patient named Thomas Griggs had escaped in 1950 and was never found. Room 7 had been his. That night, the guest didn't return to his room. Instead, he sat in the lounge, staring into the empty fireplace. When Eliza cautiously asked who he was, he answered quietly, "I came back. I promised I would, but the others won't let me leave now." The storm outside intensified. The wind moaned through the chimney. Martin tried calling the police, but the phone line was dead. The internet had been out for days. Every clock now read 3:17, frozen in time. The inn had become a prison. Eliza and Martin tried to leave. The doors wouldn't budge. Windows showed only darkness, no landscape, no lights. They tried breaking a window, but it revealed brick behind the glass. It was as if the world outside had been sealed off. Desperate, they went to room 7 again. Inside, the bed was neatly made, and the walls were covered in names, etched in fingernail-deep scratches. Hundreds of them, some names glowed faintly. One caught Eliza's eye, her own. The guest waited downstairs, calm. The house needs someone. That's how it stays quiet. It was me for a long time. Now it's one of you. He smiled, but it wasn't cruel. It was resigned. The house listens, it remembers, and it never lets go completely. Eliza whispered. "Why us?" He stood, eyes dark with something beyond sorrow. "Because you opened the side door. That door was never meant to be used. It chooses who comes and who stays." That night, Eliza made her choice. She packed a small bag and returned to room 7. Martin protested, pleaded, but she kissed him goodbye. "Someone has to end it. If I stay, maybe you can go." She shut the door behind her. The next morning, the storm was gone. The clocks ticked normally. The front door opened. Martin walked outside, free. Years later, the inn remains. Travellers come and go, but room 7 is always occupied. And every now and then, a guest asks about the woman in the attic window, humming an old tune no one remembers.